hit that position when you do it next time, though. Okay? Hit the attitude. When I was dancing myself, certainly my favorite role to perform was The Dying Swan, because what it asked of a dancer was to go beyond your technique. And I think that's both what my own upbringing as a dancer and because of my own family's belief and family heritage, that technique is just the vehicle by which you express essential things. And The Dying Swan to me was the epitome of that. It didn't make enormous technical demands, but it does make enormous artistic ones, because every gesture and every movement should signify a different experience that's emerging from someone who is attempting to escape death.
Pokinn was at school with Anna Pavlova, and one of his very first ballets, The Dying Swan, was actually created specially for her. And it's a ballet that's been associated with her ever since, partly just for the simple reason that any work that's made on a great dancer is made on their body and their style, so that very bird-like quality she had is part of the choreography and part of the steps.
She did it so beautifully that it became sort of a part of her, a legend that was always connected with Anna Pavlova. And she felt it's her very precious thing, because when she was dying, she asked to be buried in the costume of the dying swan. And I always thought that although one can dance all the other things that were danced by other people before, but that was something special for her. And I felt, don't touch it. It doesn't belong to you. Don't steal it. It belongs to Pavlova. Leave it alone. That's why I never wanted to dance.
I think The Dying Swan is really a bit of rubbish, but because Pavlova made it into something so moving, it is immortal, and people go on doing it. The English dancer who took the name Lydia Sokolova, she was a great friend of mine, wonderful woman, very courageous woman. She wouldn't dance a thing like The Dying Swan, but she adored watching Pavlova. And she said sometimes the banality of a dance like that would find the audience a bit flat. But when Pavlova began to take her curtain calls, she worked the whole thing up till people were in ecstasy. She'd run off stage, taking the longest possible way to the wings. She'd clasp the flowers. She'd probably sent herself 100 bouquets. And then she'd look so grateful up at the gallery.
She represented the ideal of perfection in ballet. In a way, that brief 3-minute fluttering fragment is all about just a little reaching for perfection, and then that's it, life's over.
It's okay, and here this is a circle round, reach, Nalieva, boom. Okay? So let's take from the second sur le cul du pied, développé, okay? Nie. It's, with the music, it's yum. Musical. Attitude. Pas de bourrée. Circle, 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 down. And up. Хорошо. Up. Up, down. Up and down. I think the way the Dying Swan is performed by most ballerinas is that it often appears like Swan Lake. It looks like a variation from Swan Lake. So it looks like Odette at Death's Door. That's not what this ballet is about. It shouldn't be about the beauty of a ballerina being able to transform herself into the figure of a swan. It's not about a swan, it's about death. And the swan is simply the metaphor for that. So what the original choreography offers, that a ballerina in general sort of doing her own series of gestures, is actually a very textured piece. There are moments where there are gestures that express her extreme fragility, her vulnerability, her surrender, her longing, her desperation, her yearning for love, to be held. And these are so intrinsically connected with the music. If my grandfather genuinely believed that this was in fact an improvisation, I don't think he would have recorded it in the great detail that he did.
The swan has been imitated all over the world, and people everywhere have tried to copy the dance as they have seen it performed. I wish to record this dance, and by all possible means make clear its composition, its technique, and plan. I wish to be of assistance to those who, like myself, are striving for the beauty of the spiritualized dance, who understand the significance of plastic expression, and who are not content with ordinary physical exercise, but who seek poetry in the movements of the dance.
Every ballerina in the world has a version of the Dying Swan. Some nearer perhaps to what Madame Pavlova danced, some more varied, more dramatic, more intense. I mean, essentially, you know, the Dying Swan is a collection of received ideas of a ballerina coming on stage, emoting while a cello plays that divine melody, and finally collapsing after 2 minutes and a bit. And we all say, oh God, how beautiful.
The execution of the Dying Swan may be more lyric or more dramatic. I admit both interpretations and leave the performers to follow the course which their individuality dictates.
It is now a cliché. It is inescapably a cliché. It is a very beautiful cliché. And what anyone does, if they call it the Dying Swan and not actually offensively wrong, will persuade the audience that this is the Dying Swan. I do not know that the minutiae of step are particularly important.
Well, there is a definitive version because he left this record. I'm not saying that it's not interesting to see someone else's interpretation. And I know myself as a child, I saw Plitzeskaya dance it and thought it was incredible, the way she performed it. But if we're attempting to look at the work of Fokine and what the intention of his work was, I think it's very important to see how he originally created it and noting the difference between what that piece is about as he envisioned it and how it's performed today.
I don't think there is a definitive version of the Dying Swan. Pavlova, we have a film of Pavlova dancing what she was dancing. It was filmed, I think, in about 1922, 23 in Hollywood. This was the version that she had evolved. What she first danced in 1905, I do not think we know. Its enormous success, thanks to Pavlova's interminable and wonderful touring, she, I'm sure, change it. Indeed, members of the company said that they'd noticed over the years a certain alteration. Fokine then made a version for his wife, Vera Fokina, and there is indeed a published version of it. The most interesting version to me is that which he taught to Alicia Markova when he was working with her in Mexico City in 1941-42, when he invited her, indeed asked her if she would learn it, because he wished to teach it to her, he wished her to dance it. She was a dancer of the most exquisite style, a dancer who brought the same kind of genius to her art as did Anna Pavlova. So what he showed Markova was his final thoughts about it.
You see, this is the strange thing with the swan. It's, what, barely 3 minutes. And in that short spell, the whole thing, to begin with, technique really, has to be forgotten. It really isn't a dance, because at the beginning, when you enter, you've already been shot. So it's just in those last dying moments that you see this creature come on. And you see her trying to struggle to get these wings to go, which won't. And the difficulty with the swan that he set for me was that it's completely on point, the bourrées, as we call them. And for 3 minutes, you're like this. It looks very easy, but on point that you have to be, as it's right over, and to try to bourrée, you see, perfectly, and travel around. That was one thing. And he asked me if I could manage that, because most dancers couldn't, you see. They do a little and then drop, a little and then drop. And then he also gave me that at the moment when you try to fly, and when the drop comes, you do go right down on the front leg. And when you have to come up, he insisted I came up right on the point, you see. He just used to sit in the chair and say, I want this, I want that, try this, try that. And he would more or less, you see, judge you as a dancer and artist to know. He would more or less know before he came what he was wanting to draw forth.
Down. Поднимаешь? Down.
This summer at the Colosseum, we had an unusual and unexpected experience. We had two dying swans, the rival dying swans. Isabelle Fokine had been brought into the company to set what she said was the authentic Fokine version of this famous solo. And in the event on opening night, we didn't get this. Now, clearly there were artistic differences and perhaps a lack of rehearsal time, which is the official reason given. So on opening night, Uliana Lopatkina performed the version of the Dying Swan that the Kirov has always done. And on the second night, Michalina performed the Dying Swan as she was taught it by Isabelle Fokine, and two very different ballets they were.
The Kirov views the Dying Swan as an improvisation. I don't think they realized that it was a recorded piece with a text and documents. So they have a particular history of people performing it in a variety of ways. Actually, to say the Kirov version, there is no quote-unquote Kirov version of the Dying Swan. It's varied from ballerina to ballerina. But by taking this attitude about that the specific choreography of Fokine wasn't really significant, I think, well, I don't think that's very respectful to his work.
It's amazing that with 3 minutes of dance, you can have two things so different in character. The Lopatkina Dying Swan was very graceful, very ballerina, very much, I think, what we expect it to be, a kind of gradual and very graceful expiry. A little bit reminiscent of Odette, in fact, very much reminiscent of Odette from Swan Lake. The following night, we saw Michalina's version, i.e. Isabelle Fokine's version. And it seems as if she's working from a different scenario. It's very dramatic, it's very feral. Right from the moment that the swan comes on, she's clearly in pain and distress, and it doesn't get any better. There isn't a lot of grace. She's hanging on desperately to have a little bit of grace in her final moments. I found she was rent by pain. I thought it was very dramatic, and in many ways, perhaps more in keeping with what I expect Fokine may have wanted.
I don't think that in a dance lasting all of 2 minutes, you can cram it full of meaning and insist that the swan is coming on either in good health or bad health. One assumes that if at the end of 2 minutes the bird is going to die, it is not particularly well to start with. And the ballerina dancing it must inevitably have a feeling that life is ebbing away, and that she's, as Nerina said when she was talking about Claire Nordy, it is the flight of the soul.
But this part, just so we have it right with the music. Attitude was great here. This was lovely here for the bra bend. So can we take it from the attitude? No, yet this attitude. Attitude. Right wing comes round, comes open, and one way down. Now slides down. Keep the arm here. It comes round the face. That's it. In ballet, one has a great deal of physical control. In this ballet, she is out of control. Collapse. And as she falls apart physically, we see death take over. So as each gesture happens, as her head falls, as her shoulder hunches over, as she loses control of each wing, and it drops, and she looks pathetically at her own inability to hold her arm, we start to sympathize with the fact that it's going. And we watch herself going. Right there, you went like this, which means you're putting it there. I want it from here.
The same.
Dead. It has you have no control over it. From here. Okay? Okay. So can we take the music back, Chuchu? Mm-hmm. And right wing. That's it. More in action with your head, Nastya. Stay, 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 collapse. Yes. Spectre de la Rose was originally done in 1911. The first cast was, of course, the very famous Václav Nijinsky and his Leap Out the Window, and Tamara Karsavina. The ballet is about a young girl who returns home from her first ball, gazing at the window sleepily, and comes across a rose that she's received. And then subsequently she falls asleep and has this fantastic image, which is that the rose comes to life as a man who seduces her with his fragrance. And there's a kind of sweet romanticism about it, but certainly a deep eroticism about this imagery.
In that young girl, the awakening of a woman, that first love, that first stirring of sexuality, the shyness about it, you know, and it's her dream. When Nijinsky used to jump through those French windows, you know, in this colossal jump, and, you know, and she dreams about it, and then they have this gentle thing together where it's still her dream about what she experienced, that awakening of a woman.
Yes, change the speed of the arms so they come up quickly and then slowly down. Right. Хорошо. Stop, please. Just watch the back arm. The shoot, yeah, a little bit. Front arm is very good. Back arm, just to be really careful, sometimes it slips out. When you're doing here, the last position is, it's you're rubbing your eyes, leaning back. Oh, he's calling you. And then forward, not a port de bras around, yeah? It's,
Nijinsky's sister Bronislava told me in later years that when Fokine had finished arranging this rather simple little scene, which lasted perhaps 12 minutes, I forget, it was utterly commonplace in her opinion, but Nijinsky developed it when he was at home in front of a mirror and turned it into something quite abnormal. He wasn't a man, he became some weird insect or the heart of the rose, whatever you like to say. And the girl was asleep half the time she was dancing with him. She was dreaming of the ball she'd been to. And then when he returned her to her chair and the music gave him the cue, he took this leap out of the wings, and nobody ever saw him coming down. They saw him going up and up. They thought to heaven or something. And after this, the crowd stalls broke down the past stalls, which they weren't allowed to do. They got through, and all these ladies in diamonds and so on surrounded them, and they were breathless. And Karsavina, who was doing an exercise at a bar, they said, "Stay still, it's her." And to Nijinsky, who spoke a little French, they asked, how do you manage to stay up in the air as it seems motionless? Oh, he said, it's very easy. You just jump, and then you stop a little, and then you come down.
Often people say, did he really jump so high? And I always say, I don't know how far from the ground, but I know it was near the stars.
A great deal is made of Nijinsky's leap out of the window, but it's very difficult to tell. There virtually is no one around today who actually saw that leap out the window, and I suspect that over time it takes on a certain mythology. And besides, the ballet is not about the leap out the window. It's about expression. And it would be wrong of us to think that only dancers, prior to 1915 were capable of great expression. I simply don't think that's true. I think that they don't get roles that, that really bring that out, but that's all the more reason why there should be Fokine works continually performed in the repertoire so that dancers are accustomed to calling on that aspect of their talent.
Russia.
I don't think nowadays anyone can dance the Spectral Lovers. It was a work made for two geniuses, Nijinsky, Korsavina, at a particular time in their careers, where the world was young, the ballet was on the crest of an enormous wave of popularity. The work was conceived by a poet, Vaudoyer, for Korsavina.